So I was told that I have to talk TED Talk style, which, I'm a consultant, so we need slides usually to feel safe. But today I have a little piece of paper and I think I'm feeling okay right now. So I'm going to talk very briefly about mental health. Today is day 243. It feels like yesterday. It feels like an eternity. And when the war started, all I could think about is how are we going to get back up from this traumatic event? Because Ophir mentioned, the economy. Trauma is about, trauma impacts your mental health, obviously. It's a predictor for all mental health issues, but it impacts your physical health, cardiovascular issues, autoimmune diseases. Some people link it to cancer. It improves productivity, and so the economy. It impacts children's productivity. Kids are 2.5 times more likely to repeat a grade. And it impacts the security of our nation. Because when your serotonin levels are, disturbed by the trauma, you're also more impulsive, more aggressive, and that leads to car accidents, domestic abuse, and substance use disorder. I'm painting an horrible picture, right? It's okay. There are also good things that can come back up. But what happened was, I couldn't think about anything else. How are we going to accelerate our recovery? And this nation is amazing. The week of the war, everybody picks up, everybody's helping everyone. You see new organizations, grassroots initiatives, wherever the government is not playing its role, civil society was there. And we have a lot of foreigners who call, how can we help? How can we help? And they're writing checks left and right. What can we do? Who do we send the money to? And I'm getting phone calls specifically about mental health. How can we help with mental health? So let me back up. Why am I getting calls on mental health? My name is Gila Tolub. I've been 20 years in consulting. The last 12 years with McKinsey. I was a partner in our healthcare practice. I created the McKinsey vaccines practice in 2015. It wasn't cool at the time. In 2019, I focused all my time on global public health and worked with the WHO on the response of the COVID crisis. And then at that time fell in love with health equity and the idea that everybody should have access to health equity. And the two areas that I started to focus on were women's health and mental health. Because those two areas are areas where even if you fix all the affordability issues, even if it's not about the money, we're still not going to be equitable because modern medicine is based on male physiology. So women can't get the best care, the care they deserve. And mental health has so much lack of data, lack of knowledge, lack of evidence that also we're not getting the best care we can get, and we're very far from getting the personalized medicine that we have in other areas. So let's back up to that question. How can we help? And how can we help accelerate healing? Well, it was a very tough question, and I didn't have a good answer. There are a lot of issues. 60% of people are already experimenting PTSD symptoms. But even before the war, we had 1 million cases of 1 million people that were impaired functionally by their PTSD. So it's not a new thing. And we have a huge shortage of professionals. We're not, I'm sorry? 1 million in Israel. Yep. 10%, 9% of the population in Israel is functionally impaired by PTSD on October 6th, not now. And we're expecting another 500,000 by the end, after the war. And that's only PTSD. Like I said, that's only one of the effects of trauma. So, first of all, when the war started, I became interim CEO of the healing space, which was at Chavad Ronit, and then at Rishpon, where we took care of the Nova survivors. And I want to share with you a few of the things I learned there that really pushed me to where I am today with ICAR Collective. So the first thing I learned when I got there is that the impact of the traumatic event is much bigger than any of us imagine. Because it's not only about all the people we lost, it's all the survivors. It's the people who had bought a ticket to the party but didn't end up going to the party. It's the parents, it's the siblings, it's the boyfriends, girlfriends, spouses, children. The ripple effect is huge. And you know how it is. We all know someone who knows someone. There isn't anyone that hasn't been impacted. And actually, I was just in the US in the last few weeks. You could feel the ripple effects all the way there. The second thing I learned is that this is a very, very fragmented landscape. Mental health has been outsourced to a lot of NGOs in Israel for many years. So there are more than 250 organizations, and we don't have a continuum of care. We have a very big disconnect between primary prevention, treatment, rehab. Things are disconnected. The third thing I learned is that, obviously the budgets are not sufficient. We're spending half of what other countries are spending, half of what other OECD markets are spending on mental health. And so there is a lot of work. But the main thing I learned is that no one has the answer. There's no playbook. Mental health has been underinvested everywhere in the world. It's not just us. So it's not like we could go to the UK, get their nice guidelines, figure out how to do it. If we could, we would be the best at it, because implementing programs, Israel is the best at that. But there isn't. So the first thing was, okay, how do we put all this together? Somebody else came to take over for me at the healing space. And we decided to create ICAR Collective. Two of my colleagues are here, Lisa and Daniel. The idea of ICAR is to look at mental health at the macro level. Everybody is very busy with specific populations, specific activities, working day and night on that. But we're bringing a macro view on the population health and thinking about where do we want to invest more resources, bring more philanthropic funding? Where do we need technology to come and support so that we can accelerate healing? Because we might not have to double our spending in mental health and copy what the UK or Europe is doing. We might do it smarter, better, with technology. So that's what we, decided to do. And because of this group, I want to end by talking about the role of technology. I mentioned quickly the shortage, but technology has a huge role to play. We are right now in a state of emergency. Like I said, a lot of countries are in this state. So anything that's developed in Israel will find other countries to adopt the technologies. But the imbalance between the supply and the demand means that we can use AI, we can use extended reality and VR. We can really empower our physicians or therapists with better tools so that they have more time to spend with their patients. There are great examples like Kai AI, who's providing AI tools as a first line. We have XR Health in Israel that is providing VR technology for therapy. Talyaz has developed all of the software that's being used by the resilience centers to help the therapists who are seeing patients after patients and need to do smarter triage. So I want you to think about what are the areas in your life and in your personal life, but also in your organizations that you can bring to mental health. Maybe it's just about raising awareness to all of the things I just spoke about and the importance of accelerating trauma healing. Maybe it's about technologies that you see in other industries and you're like, wait, there could be an application here, and, bring it. Don't hesitate and, spread the word. And I want to leave you with one last story. It's from the time I was with the Nova survivors. A few weeks into the war, we're getting nervous that we're going to lose our therapists because they could go back to their clinics at this point. There are a lot of people who need them and they can get paid, and we have no way to pay them. no budget. They're all here volunteers. But they didn't want to go back to their clinics because they said, at my clinic, I'm all alone. I have my patient and I see the clock. Here, when I had a difficult case, I can either raise my eyes and see someone and make eye contact, or I can get a hug, or even I can get out for 10 minutes. And what we realized is that the only way to heal an entire community is to work as a community. And that's my invitation to you, to please join this community that's trying to be more trauma-informed and that's trying to support. And I think we can only do that if we all work together. Thank you. Well, talk to Lisa and Daniel. ICARcollective.org. ICAR is ICAR. זה כמו ICAR, and it stands for Israel Collective Action for Resilience. Now we're going to move to a panel discussion. So I invite our panelists and our speakers to please join me. Orly, Fiona, Miriam, and Sarit. Hello. Hello.
High chairs for tall people,
That's good. That's good. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here. Makes a lot of noise. I'm going to start by asking you to briefly introduce yourselves. And because the topic that was chosen is surviving the big chill, I'm also going to ask you to say what you think about that big chill and define if you see it, how you see it. And so introduce yourself and then start with that first question. Do you want to start?
No. Okay, so my name is Orly Sternfeld. I have that. Hi. My name is Orly Sternfeld. I serve as general counsel at eHealth Ventures, a lawyer, previously a partner at Horn & Co. 20 years of experience focusing on technology. eHealth Ventures operates 2 VCs and an incubator licensed by the Innovation Authority. Our focus is investing in the digital health sector, early stage, pre-seed and seed companies. We have a portfolio of 32 companies and we manage assets of around $70 million. That's it. Thanks.
So hi, Sarit Steinberg. I'm a partner at Israel Biotech Fund. It's a fund incorporated 10 years ago with the vision of enhancing the Israeli biotech industry. I'm a lawyer by education. I have like 20 something years of experience with biotech and high-tech companies before joining the fund. Big chill. So there are a few people here that were in a panel I was on a few weeks ago and I was more optimistic, but now a bit less optimistic. We didn't really feel
the weather changes all the time.
So that's exactly what happens. So yeah, so now I'm a bit less optimistic and I think we're starting to see a chill towards Israeli companies in the Israeli industry, particularly in biotech, but I'm guessing also high tech as far as I know. We did not see that before. We actually saw the opposite after the beginning of the war, but then in the past few weeks, there was kind of a change, swift, and it's more tricky now. But I hope it's gonna change again. But that's as of now.
So hi, nice to meet you. My name is Miriam Bashan, and over there you see Miriam Stielman, which is an outstanding individual But yeah,
But
we
a
hang
different
out
one.
together, and she's Miriam from Tal, and I'm Miriam from Jal, and we just confuse everybody. No, but it's okay. Levi knows that I'm here. I'm the right person. Anyway, Jal is an Israeli fund. We've been around since 2017. We're now investing from our second fund, $105 million. We invest in B2B cross-sector early revenue. We invest in everything but medical devices and agri-tech. But we do invest in digital health. But I was told they want more generalists. So we are generalists. And we love deep tech. We're not afraid of deep tech. So that is us. We are A investors. I'll be happy to talk with any relevant startups that are here. As for the big chill, I feel there's like this dissonance, like the north is burning, although they got most of the fires are under control, and the south is being bombed, but we're here feeling safe. So I feel it's the same with investments. We are on fire. We're getting so much deal flow, and we're competing with US VCs over these deals. And Sequoia just opened an Israeli office, and Greylock is looking to open their Israeli office. And our startups are doing so good, and they're closing more and more deals. And, but I don't know. Like, I feel, like just we're sitting here and we're safe and everything is okay. And I hope that it will continue being this way. Always in these events, we're supposed to be like resilient and showing how strong we are. So part of it is saying that, it is complicated out there, and we're very lucky. So I feel the same way for our Israeli tech right now. It's complicated, but we're very, very lucky, and our amazing startups are doing really well. So, cause, Israeli tech delivers. So let's hope we keep doing that.
I go on. Short, but I go on. So, hi, my name's Fiona. I have nothing to do with healthcare, but on the flip side is I actually run a fund that focuses on secondaries. And for those of you who know me, know I also am a really good fundraiser. So I spend a lot of my career, in addition to managing my fund, which is focused on secondaries investments and buying out portfolios from investors, primarily those that either seek liquidity or are, and this is a trend we're seeing all over the world, selling their entire portfolio because of changes in strategy. And so myself and my partner, Miriam, created a fund last year. For those of you who ask me, and I'm asked often, we've already had many closings, all's good. And I'm going to talk quickly about the big chill, because I totally agree with what was just said. I start every post on LinkedIn saying living two lives, because that's literally what we're doing here in Israel. We've got this surreal reality. I mean, I'm lucky that this was running late because I was late. And, traffic is ridiculous. Restaurants are full. We're all going to shows and concerts. And yet, the north is on fire. The south is a catastrophe. And to be quite honest, the investment scene's on fire. I mean, all of us followed the Walk Me announcement 2 days ago by SAP's buying of $1.5 billion. That's adding an accumulated $4.8 billion of M&A activity since October 7th. NVIDIA did rumored $1.1 billion in 2 transactions in May. And before that, you had Palo Alto Networks on fire. So, I mean, it's surreal, but hey, we're open for business. The other side is the M&A side. And I'm not talking about healthcare. I know Gila is going to correct me and say there's subcategories, but still healthcare, in general, venture funding, 250 companies, and those that are reported, have raised just over $5 billion since October 7th. Now you've got that reality, and then you've got the report that came out yesterday by the IIA, which is talking about a bit more of a mixed trend. And I think interesting thing is seeing how Stockholm has passed us on many of the metrics. But in general, it is really two lives. And I'm going to just say one final note, and then I'll stop. I agree that it's been very, very shaky. We started off with everyone loving us. We saw a lot of investments, which I call support investments, that came in the first 2 months. You saw a lot of money coming in from Europe and the US, especially Jewish or Israeli support money. Most of them coming in donations, but you also saw it in investments. Then you saw things calming down and quietening as everyone was waiting to see what was going to happen. I'm talking here a lot about the non-traditional investors. But what's happening now is something that in many of my cycles of my career and cycles of Israel in my career is we're seeing the reestablishment of a new status quo. And as a result, we're starting to see deals again. I mean, my fundraising is totally back up for the last month and a half as this new status quo, this unfortunate status quo, which is being created, which is, hey, this is the reality. Hey, we're getting on with it. And hey, let's keep investing.
Would you like to add something? Because I know.
Yes.
Microphone.
You don't like it, huh?
We want to hear you.
So Fiona mentioned the IIA report, which is less optimistic than what's going on this stage. Resilience, uncertainty, and opportunities and challenges are the main subjects on the report. These are tough times. I can say that at our fund at eHealth, we did invest in like 6 or 7 companies since October 7th, and we do have additional investment.
You did invest.
We did, and we do have additional companies in our pipeline. However, the market has shifted, and if 2 years ago it was a market of sellers, now it's a market of buyers. The investors set the terms, so valuations are going down. Hypervaluation is no longer the situation, but funds do have. We fundraise and we have money. We at eHealth also have money, and we actively searching for companies. We have an incubator licensed by the IIA, and it's the end of the. It ends this October, so we actually launched several campaigns. Calling for companies, for early stage companies to submit presentations and ideas, and we are looking for companies to invest in. Same goes to seed companies or pre-seed companies. So tough times. However, there are opportunities, and the cycle will probably change, and valuation will come up, and you just need to try and seize opportunities that do exist, at least from my point of view.
I just want to say just to you, because I was talking a lot about Israel, because that's why I took the umbrella, but I think the trend that you're talking about is a global trend, because what we're seeing is there's a deficit in terms of investment commitments versus distribution since 2018 has been negative. And there's a global trend all over the world that the VC funds are having trouble raising money. It's not just us. Yeah. It's a global trend. I mean, the number in Israel is that fundraising to VC funds is down 70% in the first quarter. And if I remember correctly, it's a similar figure in Europe if you take out the outliers of the mega funds in Europe and the US. So I totally agree with you, but I do think what's important for us to also acknowledge is that we're in an interesting climate in the cycle, you know, the high interest rates and the alternative for investment. And I think the strength of Israel is the strength of the technology and firms like yours that, you know, A, there's the startups are more lean, and B, the technology is really strong. And I think that we'll just make it out of this cycle and probably even come out stronger.
Hopefully, I agree. Totally agree.
No, and I agree totally. I think it is a global. I mean, we're seeing the banks, right? We're seeing the consulting firms. We're seeing everybody also, you know, reducing their staff numbers. So I think there is no hiding in the sense that there is a little bit of a downturn. Actually, I remembered when I left McKinsey in July, like everybody told me I was crazy, worst time to leave. You know, and at the time we thought the worst thing that could happen was an economic downturn. And look at that. We had a bunch of other things that could happen. So, but I think a lot of the people in this room are exhausted, right? We've had COVID-19 and we said downturn, and then the healthcare people saw the numbers, whoa, through the roof, because suddenly investing in healthcare was super cool. And then we saw the numbers go down, and we said, yeah, go back to basic. You know, we're not going to invest in just pretty slides and nice stories. Go back to the basics. And then now again, we're a little bit in a downturn. So what's your advice for folks now on, first of all, what they can focus on, what they should bring up first? And maybe describe for you what's back to basic. What do you expect to see? You want to start? Yeah.
Big. Now I regret it. I think what we see is there was like this euphoria after 2021. Like people got money that they shouldn't have gotten. I have no other way of saying this. People were investing in a dream, and it also was in a better times. So there was room to think about luxury for enterprises, luxury in tech. And as Gila said, we're back to basics. So companies that solve problems, solve a real pain, get funded. And I'm going back to what I said before. We're not seeing this. We don't see a chill. We are waiting for valuations to go down. They're up. We had this pitch of how we're going to, do like pay to plays or like reconstruction of cap tables. We can't, because companies are doing really well. Good companies do well. And so if you're building a company now, solve a problem. There's no room for luxury. There's no room for the extras. Solve problems. Ta-da. Very dramatic. Yeah.
So I can say from our field, and again, it's biotech, it's very, very limited. It's only Israeli or Israeli related. Again, I think many companies are not realistic. The valuations are high. They need to be reduced. They need to come to terms with the fact that it's better to have money at a lower valuation than not having money with a great valuation. It's not helping anyone, so it's still a struggle. And sometimes it leads the company to being drained, and then it's just a shame, and then you give a lower valuation than you even expected. So that's not a good result for anyone. And I think today in our field, as you said, solve a problem. So there are pharmas that lead the market and they know what the pains are. They know what's the need. They know what's hot. So you should follow the trend and go and try to solve the problem that they indicated that is important to solve. So that's like my 2 cents.
I would like to add that solving a solution is great, and especially in digital health, it's about the technology. We go through the process of developing the product or the device or the application and the clinical trials and the regulation. But I think that the other important thing is know your end point and know the market. You need to know what you're going to do with this solution or technology that you're developing, and how you're going to commercialize it, and what's going to be your market strategy. These are things that we focus during the due diligence process prior to investing in company. And then also after investing, we monitor and advise company on these subjects. So this is also something to keep in mind and focus on.
I want to go back to your subject, which is mental health. Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I read my homework. You told me, Evie told me to prepare, so I did. So, but I do want to say something. I have a 16-year-old daughter. She turned 16 last week. She's a thank you. She's a classic child of COVID, because she went into junior high, 7th grade, Kita Zain, the year of COVID. I mean, she graduated from, the first school, in the middle of COVID, and they didn't have the graduation. And then she moved over, and this whole experience of meeting new people, she was at home with COVID. And then when they started school, it was in ridiculous capsules that were totally useless. And it created tremendous damage. And I think I was reading a report about one of the biggest investors in the space who was talking about the specialty of startups and the fact that the most interesting startups these days are targeting youth. And I watch my daughter. And I watch my daughter before and I watch her after. She doesn't move without the phone. She doesn't move without the group, without the collective. Everything she does, she has to consult with the group, with the collective. Every fear, every response to someone, every question she's asked, even in the street sometimes, my goodness, I see her seeing someone walking towards us and she's immediately writing to the group. And that group is her support group. And that group, and I know there's many startups in the US these days, and in Israel I know a few, it's about that group. And I think we're dealing with a generation that has phenomenal anxiety. I mean, anxiety, fear.
Amazing market.
It is. No, I know, you see, I'm selling it. No, but it's unbelievable because I'm taking it to a relatable point, which is really my daughter. And it's pretty crazy because my son went into high school during COVID and he just took it with two hands, loving, because he's a giant, just like me. And so going into be a box in Zoom, he suddenly became normal. So each one takes it differently, but the levels of anxiety that we're seeing in these kids that went through COVID, the fear of first impressions, the fear of making a wrong step because they lost 2 critical years of social skills. I'll never forget at the end of COVID when they were starting their first year of school in 2021, we decided to take her out to a restaurant in Tel Aviv. And she was terrified of walking down the street because those people, and this is a generation that is going to need a lot of help, a lot of coaching. Now, unlike other people in my circle who say to me, she'll grow out of it. I don't think she will. And I think that's one of the biggest things as well as talking about mental health is that they're going to need a lot of help. I know that as you talk a lot about the UK is huge with this because they're developing a lot of support groups in schools, mentorship to the youngsters as they're going through the system, helping them deal with anxiety through various forms of therapy. We unfortunately in Israel have our next big problem to deal with, but it would be good if there was public funding going that way.
And just for those who don't know, the fact that we talk about the UK is just because they have a really great system where they do for everything cost-benefit analysis, right? So they're in a system where they're really going to analyze whether it's a worthwhile investment. And given the NHS is national and pays for all of the healthcare, very quickly they can assess whether it was a worthwhile intervention. So they invest much more in primary prevention, in things that are quote unquote outside of the medical system, right? And one of the things, we see even here is when the MOH thinks about mental health, they think about the hospitals, they think a little bit about treatment, but they rarely think about what do we do in schools, what do we do in groups. And that's where technology has a big role to play. Dugri is an example of a startup that is gotten even philanthropic funding in Israel, so that it can be used with groups of soldiers, with groups of that have experienced similar things during the war. Good. No. Is it? Levi, you tell us when we have to stop, because we can just talk, Okay, so we go on to talk. No, I was very curious about the fact that, it's bemikre, right? It's not in purpose, but you sat the two of you on that side, and you sat the two of you on that side, and it goes in level of pessimism to optimism, exactly. But there's a line in the middle here. Yeah, Miriam, yeah, Sarit, you were optimistic 2 weeks ago, but today, not so much.
I was really optimistic last week. In 2 weeks.
Maybe we'll come back in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it again in 2 weeks.
Okay. But I'm curious. It's also, the fact that the two of you are very specialized in one field, right? And the two of you mentioned you're more generalist in looking at things. And so given your generalist, maybe is there something different about healthcare than other areas right now? Or is it that you're diversified and therefore you're seeing over the years things change? Like what could be driving this?
No, but I really do think that it's that because, we can relate to cyber, we can relate to, just so many areas, deep tech, gov tech, the hottest areas at the moment. We can easily talk about AI without the asterisks of. So I do think that changes things, again, WalkMe is a software, WebPlay, AI was NVIDIA. So even the numbers I'm giving are not at all relevant to them.
No.
So, but the thing is, there is, I think in that report, they were talking about mental health, and I think they were talking about healthcare in the report that came out yesterday. A little bit. Yeah, they kind of missed everything to do with the world versus Israel and stuff like that.
The world is improving. Israel is just not there.
Yeah.
But since you see both, Miriam, do you see? Have you made investments in healthcare in the last year?
We made it 2 years ago in an amazing company called eHealth.
Lil?
Lil. It's like a Celtic word for something. No, they were called Trajectory when we invested.
I know Trajectory. It's
Yes.
it's for R&D, AI for acceleration of R&D or no?
No. They connect between patients
Yeah.
and pharma companies.
Yeah, to accelerate recruitment of patients into
Yes, exactly.
into trials.
They've got a new name.
They've got a new name, so I have to keep
Yeah.
trying. Now I'm only mental health. They're not doing that. I'm kidding.
Yeah, maybe somewhere down the pipeline. I think that what happened, and you would know better than I do, is that for health, there was a lot of funding during COVID, and like a lot of money went into health. But first of all, of these trends that hit enterprise software first in 2021, 2022 are only coming now to healthcare, where we realize that people are going to go back to the office and we're not all going to be remote all the time. So it really affected them. It really affected them, like many startups that were, that thought that this is, thought that, what was it called? The new normal. Thought the new normal will take longer, and it didn't. So I think you're only seeing now the aftermath of the end of COVID. So the pharma companies, we see that anyone who had anything to do with Pfizer had churn or down or like the accounts were revalued about like over like different startups doing like marketing, doing managing clinical trials. So like the pharma companies have less resources for innovation. At least that's what we feel. Like there was this big promise of COVID, and like a lot of money went there. And I think, the global downturn also affected pharma companies. Also, Moderna, all Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, and Pfizer had this amazing revenue source that died down because no one is paying for the vaccines anymore. So everything around it also had to be downsized. So you would know better than I do, but we think there's like a global trend. The other thing is that health has that other areas don't have is academia. So you will probably know better than I do, but I think, I think that, the general sentiment inside academic institutions will affect health, where other areas of like more engineering, we are not seeing this.
Yeah, no, that's something I've heard a lot in my last trip. I was in New York last week, and a lot of people were talking about the fact that dean of schools right now are very much criticized for not doing more about anti-Semitism on campuses, but at the same time they're fighting to keep their grants for all the projects that are in collaboration with Israel, right? And especially in healthcare, we have a lot because we have a lot of data in Israel on healthcare. 95% of the medical records are digital, and so. This is an area that we have to watch and make sure that those partnerships can remain for the years to
Israel
come.
is an international role model
Yeah,
in everything to do
course.
with digitizing of the health system.
It is.
That so much of the data is in
I
one
know.
place.
Israelis hate when I say that, but
No,
it
but
is.
it's the truth. When you go to, by the way, when you go to America, they'll talk to you that it's so decentralized. You really can't track the information. In Israel, you can track it everything from
Yeah.
birth. Your medical
Within the same age.
within the same.
As long as you're
Within the HMO.
in the same HMO.
Yeah, but they have to pass through though. If you go to the hospital, they don't. But when you move, they pass through the information. No, we're really like, and I have a great graph also on life expectancy versus the spend per capita, and we're one of the most efficient country in the world, right? So
That surprises us.
that I have a 2x2. I know. Who would have thought that I love 2x2s? No, so scatter plots, all of it. It's actually a very efficient market. And someone got upset at me when I said that a politician who wanted to, bitch about the state of the country. And I said, but actually, we're doing well relatively to others, and so we have to remember that. We have questions in the audience. Oh, thank you.
אתם יכולים להפסיק להזיז את המצג פה?
כן, זה מאוד...
זה פשוט מטריד.
Okay, can you stand up and introduce yourself before you ask your question?
If I stand up, I'm going to be higher than Fiona. Hi. Hi, I'm Emma. I don't feel comfortable to stand up, so just listen to me when I'm sitting. Thank you. So I have this question actually that has to do with your core business, all of you, about investing in companies. So we have these two events, right? We have the COVID that actually created or resulted in a lot of mental health issues and a lot of innovation and technologies that came up in that. And we have the war, which is two different things. And at the same time, companies that have raised during COVID are companies that have been easily scalable worldwide. Why? Because we had the problem was kind of globally, and all you had to do is actually translate the applications or the solutions into another language. If it was a rehabilitation through computer or taking vital parameters at home or home caring, etc., etc. Also anxiety and all of these, even through gaming that is actually flourishing at the moment. But what is happening since October 7th, that is 90% of the companies and the new raising companies in mental health are very, I would say, niche for everything that has to do with a kind of a trauma that is related to the war. How do you consider when you see these kind of companies that are kind of niche, not scalable, maybe not wanting to scale, maybe not communicating scalability in towards or versus what you've been thinking about those same companies during COVID? Am I clear? Does it make sense?
Okay, I'll take that. So I'm actually gonna disagree that the technologies that are coming now are niche and not scalable, period. I mean, I've worked in addictions for many years and people were like, oh, we can't treat addiction of, drugs and alcohol and porn the same way. Addiction is addiction is addiction. The brain works in one way. I mean, I go back. Of course, there's a lot of localization. By the way, it's also not true that you could just translate your AI and go to another country. We tried that with the UK on some programs. They completely failed because you need cultural adaptation. I was talking to a robotics company that has an amazing robot for loneliness. They were able to raise a ton of money from Japan because they have a lot of problems of elderly living alone. It would have taken 1 year to get to the same level of empathy in Japanese than in English. Even going from the US to the UK, they don't think they can do it because it's not the same culture. It's not the same empathy. It's not the same jokes that the robot has to tell the people. But what we have here now is a traumatic event. A traumatic event at the end of the day is whether, you have experts in sexual trauma, you have expert in war-related trauma, you have expert in child abuse, but at the end of the day, it affects the way we measure effectiveness of the product is the same. We have the same.
I totally agree.
So they will be able to grow.
What I've been asking is actually about you guys. How do you consider that? I don't say I can't make everything can be scalable.
Yeah.
All of the traumatic or PTSD is a global thing, right? So
Yeah. So I think they're all scalable. And a lot, but and it's not just about mental health. A lot of startups that start in Israel only because there's data in Israel. So we're doing R&D, we have the data, they don't have it.
Because we're clever.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, we have a question over here. If you can introduce yourself too before.
Hi, I'm Rachel Gross. I help Israeli companies market out healthcare companies. So I see the companies that I've been working with have really been grappling with their messaging. Like, what do we say? How do we say it? Definitely for the first at least 3 months of the war, everyone was stuck in this LinkedIn echo chamber. Whereas, like, guys, what you're seeing on LinkedIn is not what your clients are seeing. And even now, as I'm working,
Brilliant.
even now working with companies who, just as we mentioned, pivoted, created amazing solutions for the war. It's a fantastic product, but how do we sell that to anyone else without saying, yeah, there was a war and that's why we did this. Our main client is the IDF.
You should get into the defense industry. That could be good for you.
No, but it's true. That thing about the LinkedIn echo chamber, I never thought about it. We were totally immersed. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and we're like thinking we're outpouring. And then, do you know when I realized is, I don't know, something must have changed in the algorithm because I think LinkedIn must have thought enough already. And I started seeing all kinds of normal posts. And that I think is like, okay, switch, you know, you want to get back on the road pretty quickly. So you better change the narrative. But it really was crazy for the first 3 months. We were so sunken into it.
So what's the messaging that you tell foreigners?
So do you know what was crazy? We got on a plane in November. We actually got on a plane 3 days after the foreign ministry issued a travel warning to all Israelis. And we didn't know what to do. And we called our host in Austria at the time. And we said, listen, we're canceling our flight. You know, they've scared us silly. We're not supposed to go anywhere. We're staying home. And my counterpart in Austria said, I accept this. I know you. I love you, everything. She said, but the biggest issue is that if you don't come, you're sending a much louder message than coming and dealing with it. She says, you have to get on that plane. She says, I'm not going to force you, but I'm telling you, if you want to succeed, the faster you get back on a plane. She says, you're not giving up on anyone. You're not giving up on your country. You're just making sure it continues. And after we did that first flight, and I just came back from Paris last week with a big delegation, half of them hadn't been on a plane since October. And I think my biggest message to people is get on that plane. Because when you go outside, it's daunting, because outside, as you said, everything's normal. You know, only we're in the middle of the trauma. But I think to get back into the role of business is, first of all, to show them that you are. By the way, it's really hard because you're the ones that are coming from the other side. So the first 20, I'm going to say it differently. We had 2 types of meetings. We had those that you've come from the other side and they've got all their pent up questions and they just ask you for half the meeting. And it's not building a bridge. It's just outright difficult. And the other half ignores the matter totally. It's like there isn't something happening. And then it's a judgment call if you want to say something. I have had someone at the lift say to me, oh, and by the way, I hope your family's okay, because I think they suddenly remembered. But it's you're absolutely right. There's a balance in what you're selling outwardly.
It's okay. I think if we want to build global companies, we have to have a global play. And in the end of the day, our companies are not serving Israel. And I think, companies, maybe for investors, it could be like an okay story, but I just wouldn't use it because it doesn't matter. You want to sell a global product to global users. So you got your knowledge based on a project you did inside Israel, like good for you, but it doesn't matter because you're selling a global product for global users. So it's a bit, I'm Israeli and I'm Dugri and I'm sorry, nobody cares. And please don't talk about it because your client is not going through what you're going as an Israeli. You have a global client. You have to play a global game.
I would go back to necessity is the mother of innovation as well, right? Remember that everything we solved in this country came from a very specific problem. Defense, cyber, water. There's a reason why, we're leading in those fields. So still, it's still the same case. It didn't change. It's just that we have a new necessity.
So I think for our industry, we came out with a very loud message that was, we go on no matter what. And that was the message. I know
some people love it.
I don't know. I related to it. I mean, that's the Israeli spirit.
Yeah.
I think people could relate to that. People appreciated that. I'm talking about people who are not Israelis, obviously. Yeah. So they related to it. It gave comfort to limited partners. It gave comfort to companies outside of Israel. And I think they appreciated it. And that was our message.
Did you guys see the hashtag no matter what? Yeah, it was on Times Square even.
Yeah.
You have any thoughts? Did you have to change your messaging with your companies, or even you with you're also all raising money at some point?
I don't think. Thank you,
We do try to, in general, and also now to open foreign markets to our companies. So, but that's not specific to this area. To this time, we do we take CEOs to conventions and so on, and try to create cooperation and collaborations, but nothing specific at this time.
Any other questions?
Let's take one more question. Who's got a question? Oh, good. Excellent. Front row. But you got to stand up.
Oh, okay.
So, thank you very much. So thank you very much for this event that I'm becoming permanent participant, I think. So thank you very much. It's really exciting. And my name is Elena Mangasari, and I'm the lawyer, IT lawyer by education. But for the last several years, I was affiliated with Thomson Reuters, business development, territory manager, customer success for legal technology and information protection worldwide. So recently made Aliyah here and happy to find myself. So Tel Aviv, New York, London, Moscow, back to Tel Aviv. So all the circle of the world. Thank you very much. You are doing great job. And sorry for some journalistic type of question. I think Sarit, I raised this in the previous event, but it's a question for all of you if you are, as far as you are representing the investing in startups community in the women's health. You are all looking for the projects, of course, new projects. And just if you are asked to set up the key number of bullet point criteria for selection of these projects nowadays, and your forecast in terms of successful investment, in terms of the startup, specifically in the healthcare industry, what could be your bullet points? Just, I think it's a question for all of you, maybe it's a matter of discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we spoke about it already, but okay, we'll do it again. It's going to be the same, so it has to be like a good solution to an existing problem that requires one. A good team has to, we have to evaluate the market and see what's in the market, what are you renewing, what are you bringing to the market, how is it better? Otherwise, it's not very helpful. But I think those are like the key features. So, good technology or science, good team, and something that is worthwhile for the market.
The way we look at it is the key triangle. So point one, first of all, it has to be in a category that's relevant. Here we're talking about healthcare or generalist. So that'll be determined at the email phase. When that first email comes through and business plan, it has to be a yay or nay for something that the firm evaluates. You've got a cyber investor who gets a food tech business plan that it's not going to even make the first cut. By the way, my biggest comment to anybody raising money here is choose who you're pinging, because every no is another bad point, and it's an emotional point. So try to focus who you're sending your business plans to. So the triangle is made up first, in my view, of the team. I'm a people's person. If sitting in front of me is someone who's explained to me why he doesn't need my money, or she doesn't need my money, or is busy, not prepared to listen, argumentative, for men, by the way, will be something that will deter me usually. Don't laugh. It happens. It still happens. 4 men, 3 men. But it's not because it's the men or the women, by the way. I just want to see the diversity. So all I'm getting at, so first of all, it's the team. And if you've got anything that unsettles me with the team, I'm not going to continue onwards. By the way, one of the biggest mistakes that we make, because we're a fix-all society, we think that if the team, he's got a brilliant idea, but he can't be the leader and he wants to be the leader, we all think, oh, we'll bring a strong chairman. Well, in most of the cases, that doesn't work because the CEO, the founder, is the one who wants to lead it. So has to be about the person in front of you and the gut instinct. The second thing that we look at is market. So we take no risk on team. And then you look at market. There has to be some form of a market. There has to be some form of a name. It doesn't have to be established, but it has to be something that's not going to be niche. And I'll give you an example. VC firms usually won't invest in a startup that's focusing Israel just because it's not a big enough market. That is one of the reasons we all are building international companies. And the third part of the triangle is the technology. So if you don't bet on the people and because you wanted 100% certainty, and if you're looking at the market and there has to be, let's say, 50% comfort, on the technology, you're prepared to make the biggest bet because that's where you're going to throw it out the park. So if I take it to the word of healthcare, it's about the solution. So, and if I translate market to being the need, so you've got the people, you've got the need, and then you've got the solution. And that's the triangle that makes up any startup.
I'll just add something because the need in healthcare is twofold. There's the need of the patient and there's the need of, is the payer going to pay for this? And it's totally not the same. Okay. So you can be solving a really great problem that people are feeling. And, I had someone who came to tell me she had the greatest solution for women who just lost a baby at birth. There was no one to pay for that. Right. So so in that case, you don't go to VC. You could go to impact investment if you want to. You could go to Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You could do other things with this idea, but it's not a business.
I totally agree with that. With this last point, the fact of the market and the commercialization. I said before that technology. Of course, you need to have a good technology in place, and you need to have a market for it. But you also need to know how you're going to reach the market. And in healthcare and pharmaceuticals or medical device, and also digital health, it's all about the reimbursement and you are going to approach, and the insurance companies and so on. So that's a tricky thing to tackle and to have the right solution for that.
But then they can also commission something, can't they? Because you can also use that for tip side. Can they not come to you and say, help us find a solution?
Usually that's for us to assist and help them find, because at the initial concept, when you have the idea or the technology, you won't have all the path to the market. But that's a thing to think about and see whether you're finding the right path to actually bring it to the market and have someone that pays for it. Because
so good. First of all, let's thank this panel. This has been an amazing panel. I noticed the color scheme. We went from bright and cheery to real dark black, and that was perfect. Exactly. So it's basically Shabbat. It's time to go home, but I'm so glad we all came together and did this together, and especially the fact that we had great people to talk to us. So thank you for coming out here. Thank you for the community and keeping it vibrant and strong. That's what we have to do.
Thank you, Levi.